time. It's our time, my friends. Time for millions of maturepreneurs, 55 plus, who are hashtag not done by a long shot, to revolutionize how we lead, do business, and innovate our world. I'm your host, Jeanette Anderson, and welcome to my conversations with fascinating people who would rather inspire than retire. Have you ever found yourself on the sidewalk holding a box of your belongings from your office after being fired? I have. And I can tell you, the betrayal, the frustration, the anger, the depression that comes after something like that, when you've given so much of yourself to an organization, when you've achieved amazing results, when you've been loyal and they haven't, that's hard. And so if you've experienced it, you know that hard doesn't even really begin to describe it. Well, my guest today, Ian Aman, and I both gone through that experience. And there's a big question that happens then. Now what? Now what do I do? Who am I now that I'm not the role or the position or the whatever it is that I was doing? What the hell do I want? Most of us don't know because we've been so busy building someone else's dream that we don't know what our own dream is. If that's you, my friend, then listen to today's episode, because we're going to have a conversation around what are some options, what can you do, how do you disconnect so that you can reconnect. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Maturepreneur Podcast. I'm Jeanette Anderson, and welcome to our show today, because we are going to talk about disappearing. Yep, I am here today with Ian Aman, and we are having a fascinating conversation around going from basically corporate VP to author and coach in his journey, but really about how to disappear strategically or disconnect. So welcome, Ian. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. Welcome back. I appreciate it. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So, of course, I'm going to tell you the official bio, and then we're going to find out the juicy, salacious details behind the scene. I always say that, Ian, and I never get any. Anyway,
I'll get
okay. And then we're going to launch into his fascinating journey and what the advice is that came out of that for people. So Ian Aman is a speaker, author, and ultramarathon runner who spent nearly 30 years in executive leadership before deciding to take a strategic disconnection. His book, Disappear for a Year, challenges high performers to strategically disconnect so they can show up bigger in every area of life. Ian's keynote, Disappear to Reappear, has been turning heads in boardrooms and on stages across North America. When he's not logging miles on a trail or chasing down his next adventure, he's helping leaders reclaim their identity, their health, and their purpose. Based in Alberta, Canada, relentlessly human. I love that line. Okay, so let's talk about you and your journey, but let's start with something about you that might surprise people.
Yeah, thanks for the intro, by the way, too. You kind of let some of it out. Like I'm an obsessed ultra marathoner. It's something that kind of came late in life. One of the things that some people know, but not a lot, is the 10-year anniversary is just coming up. Is in 2016, I ran Alberta from the very top to the very bottom, 1,600 kilometers, 38 back-to-back marathons. And I did it to raise awareness for the Canadian Mental Health Association. And I did it with my family. And we had an amazing summer sharing the news and engaging with people. So that's something that I'm known for a little bit, but not everybody knows that when they meet me. So
okay, well, first of all, my first question is why? Why would you run that far and that much? Like, why? Like, that just is pretty much the definition of insanity to me. But what is it about ultra marathons that grabbed you?
One of the lessons that I've learned through running over the years has been this really strong connection that you have with your mind and your body, your mind and your potential. And in life, like I think a lot of times it's our minds and our brains and the narratives we have in our head that really limits us.
Hmm.
And and I think that's been the lesson, is like when you can learn how to really handle your mind and really sort of build that sort of discipline and resilience, it really shows up everywhere in your life. And I think a lot of people go through mental health struggles or challenges, and then just life gets tough. And so really we forget a lot about the mind. So I've learned through running like how you can hack your brain, and you can, that translates into doing these crazy things like running across the province or 200-mile races or whatever the things that I, you know, that in the running world, it translates. So for me, that's been a big life lesson that's a huge part of my life still. So
Wow. Okay, so what is an ultra marathon? How long is that?
anything longer than a typical marathon, which is 26.2 miles or 42.2 kilometers. So typically the stuff I'm running are like 100-mile races, 100-kilometer races. Last year I did the Tahoe 200-miler around Lake Tahoe. And so these big, long suffer fests, because the
Yeah,
older I get, the older we get, the more we've been there. Like, and I think that's half it, is we know how to deal with pain and discomfort and like challenges. And so for some reason I'm addicted to these silly things. And so
that's amazing. So how long do you run? If it's a 200 mile race or a 200-kilometer race, how long is that?
200 miles took me 93 hours.
93 hours. So you must stop and sleep and stuff, do you?
Very little, but you do a little bit. Like you'll take a 20-minute nap along the side of the trail or something like that and get up. I think in the span of 93 hours, I might have slept 3 hours, 3.5 hours total. So
Oh my God. And so how do you and you just grab food on while you're running and
yeah, you carry your pack, and there's aid stations along the way. So every 30 kilometers or so, you get to go into an aid station, grab some food, change, do what you need to do. And then you carry a lot of your nutrition with you, and self-support yourself along the way. And it's a really, really interesting one, because you have to be super fit, but you also have to be really mentally tough and
yeah.
resilient, because there's, and I love that, because most of us don't take ourselves to this level of discomfort where we really find that there's a whole other gear there.
Yeah.
Our brains are wired to protect us. And so when it thinks you're kind of like at your capacity in life, in sports, whatever, it'll shut you down. And so whenever you take yourself into these really dark places, your brain goes, oh, okay, I guess I've got more in me than I thought I did. And so that's where these ultras really tap into that.
All right. Well, that's a very fascinating uh, reason and journey, and it's I'm glad you're having fun with it. Let's put it that way. Okay, so
Pretty psycho, right? Is that what you're saying, Jeanette?
well, it's just not something I would do, even if I was being chased by someone or something. Um, so tell me a little bit about your journey outside of the running. What prompted you to disappear for a year?
hmm I spent 30 years, just under 30 years, in finance, in the executive world, in corporate, climbing the corporate ladder, chasing the roles, chasing the titles, dedicated to an organization for a long time, only to find myself on a Tuesday sitting in the parkade with a box of my things and a severance check in my hand. And it was at that moment that I realized, like, man, my ladder has been leaned up against the wrong building for all of this time.
Yeah.
And so to me, that was my aha moment, is like, okay, I poured my heart and soul into my career and the things that I thought mattered, to realize that it didn't really matter as much as I thought. Or, there's lots of great lessons, but I got to that place where it's like, okay, this doesn't feel good. And I think for a lot of people, that's it, is we get to this place. And for me, that was it, is I felt like successful on paper, but I was really burnt out. I felt like I had lost my spark, my purpose, what I was doing. And I just thought, I'm not jumping back into this, because I just feel like you think after that many years that someone would care. Is like, you drive off and they're like, they move on. And it's like, man, I spent all this time building somebody else's
Business.
ladder, right? Or success, I should say. And it's time for me to do that myself. And so that was really my aha turning moment.
Yeah, I imagine that there was quite a sense of betrayal as well. I was in corporate and had an experience of making the largest sale in the company's history, and because they would have had to pay me over $100,000 in commission, and they were having a bad quarter, they cut me despite having worked super, super hard, made them the most money they've ever made in one deal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, so that they didn't have to pay out that in that quarter and their numbers would look better for the stockholders. Super sense of betrayal, lots of depression around it, lots of challenge. Took me kind of and burnout. Took me almost 2 years to climb back out. So when you were in that situation, what made you just you said, okay, I don't want to go back in. What was the process that you went through? How did you deal with that?
Very much like what you're saying, Jeanette, is that you go through this roller coaster of emotions. You're like, you're pissed off, you're angry, you feel hurt, you're depraved, you're excited because like, okay, I've got freedom now. I've got a whole thing. But then that scares the heck out of you because
Yeah.
you've been a lot of times like you get trained in these corporate, jobs where it's like you've got systems, you've got processes, the play, and then all of a sudden you're out there and like, oh my goodness, I'm on my own. And so you have to create versus being sort of like told, here's the mission. So you go through this roller coaster of sort of emotions and trying to figuring it out. And for me, like this is where my book came is literally, I can't remember where I was watching a video or something. And the guy on the video said, I dare you to disappear for a year. No posting, no boasting, become a ghost, work on yourself, level up every single area of your life, and then come back unrecognizable. And, at that time I got a fairly nice severance check to walk away. And so I thought, okay, I've got some time now. I'm going to work on myself and I'm going to go find who I am in this process and
Mm-hmm.
really come back different. Cause I don't want to come back to that same guy that was sitting with a box of his stuff in his car, pissed
Mm-hmm.
off. Like I really want to come back different.
Yeah.
And that's what prompted the whole thing. And the lessons there were really like, the problem I think a lot of times was we don't really know who we are because we haven't given ourselves the space and the time to know that or
Mm-hmm.
ask those questions or really we're in such a busy world and there's so much chaos around us and our lives are busy. We have families and stuff. And it's like, you never slow it down. And so to me, that's such a huge thing that I was given that gift of that time and space.
Mm-hmm.
But you can still do it when you're busy. But for me, that was really a big part, a big opportunity to take that dare. And
Mm-hmm.
as I went through it, I was like, man, I'm learning so much about who I am and where I'm going and maybe some of the blind spots I had. And I
Mm-hmm.
just documented it in my book and started to live it out. And so, yeah, that's kind of where it got me.
Awesome. Okay, so tell me what was the kind of moment that you knew you weren't done and
Hmm.
you wanted to come back, and what was the process for deciding what that would look like for you?
Yeah. It's hard to articulate down to a single moment, but to me, I think throughout my entire career, where I've sort of lit up the most was when I was had sort of like the opportunity to lead people and inspire and sort of bring out the best of people. And I think that's been a skill set that I've had is to is to help people see sort of their true potential.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that was the moment I sort of realized is like, man, I have so much more left. And I think I'm not alone. The more I sort of realized, like, there's so many people that, like, especially from our generation, that are heart and soul into these corporate jobs. And you're like, man, I just feel like I'm lacking my purpose. I've got, and I wanted to really give that somewhere where, I could help people to also unlock that. So I don't know if there's a specific moment. I think it's during that time of really stepping back that it really made it clear to me that I have way more to give. And
Mm.
I'm tired of doing it for somebody else. I want to do it for myself, and I want to be successful. And I'm tired of building someone else's dream. I want to build my own sort of legacy here. And because that's the thing, you drive off from a corporate job, and you'll be forgotten in a year or less, a week, a month. You're replaced. I want to
Mhm.
build something where people remember me for years and years to come. And so
Right.
that was sort of, I don't know if that didn't really answer that super well. It wasn't like a lightning bolt moment. It was kind of a long lead up to that.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And that is the case for a lot of people as well. It's kind of the grain of sand on the scale that eventually tips in that
Yeah.
different direction. So, what were some of the tools or mindset hacks or habits that were really essential for you in getting through the process, but also making the pivot into what you're doing now?
Yeah.
What would you advise people check out or do or use for support? What did you use for support?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I learned was what's an what I call is called a chaos inventory, or it's basically taking an audit of every area of your life and really being critical of where are you at in all these things. So I talk about things like obviously your career, your finances, your relationships, your spirit, your soul,
Mhm.
your health, your fitness, like things like that. Really, sort of all these different domains we have in our lives, because I think a lot of times we lean in hard into one and we forget the others. So, like the tool that I really designed and for myself was doing an audit and all these things. Like, where am I, and how am I feeling, and sort of, am I happy with where I'm at? Like, what does the next level look like? And because that was the part of that dare that really sort of kind of got to me was, a lot of times I think we want to be masters at everything. Is like, I don't need to be a master at finances in my social circle and having fun and playing in my life and everything. I just need to be one level better. So what does one level better look like to me in finances? Or what does level look like in my social circle? It means like those types of things. So I use this sort of process to go through and audit all those things. And that to me was the most powerful exercise of going, oh my goodness, look how much of this stuff I have in my life that's weighing me down that I have control over. Because I think a lot of times we get to these places where we think, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do. But you actually have a lot more control than you think. And so that to me was such a powerful exercise. Like even I talk about in my book about the three different types of people you'll have in your circle. You'll have these anchor people, you'll have these passengers, and you'll have these engines. So the anchors are the people that are the negatives that tell you it's not going to work and you're crazy. And then you have the passengers that are the people that are just kind of along for the ride. They're not going to push you. They're just kind of whatever. And then you have those few engine people that are there to push you and challenge you and help you really get to that next level. And you may or may not have those. So you got to go find those mentors. And so really looking at those things was like a huge eye opener for me. And that was the most powerful tool that sort of sparked the whole thing.
Well, and on that note, I was going to ask you what role support played for you because you sound like a very disciplined person. Obviously, anyone who can get to a point where they can run 200 miles is someone who's very disciplined and has a strong will. Uh, but not everyone has that. So to make these changes, uh, what support did you need when will and discipline wasn't enough?
Yeah, it really comes back to that circle of having the right people, because the notion I had is like, I'm not going to go out there and make this huge announcement of, hey everybody, I'm taking a discipline. Like I'm just going to go quiet. And when you see me next time, you're not going to recognize me. But it is a point of having those people in your circle that are going to really like raise you up. One of the things I did was I got a brand new phone and a brand new phone number. And before I wiped my old phone, I went through all of my contacts and I thought, I'm only going to pick 5 people that get my new phone number. And the criteria was you need to be someone that I would call an engine, or someone that's a mentor, or someone that I can lean on, that'll understand and really challenge me and be someone I can lean on. And the rest of those people, I'm just not going to give my number. And it's pretty dramatic, but
Very dramatic.
when
And
you do
so,
that, when you do that, look, when you go through your list of all the people you have in your circle, you're like, oh my goodness, there's a lot of people here that are not helping me.
Mhm.
Um, some are just kind of whatever people, and some are like actively against you. So
Wow.
yeah,
And so you must have really enrolled your family. You said mentioned a family. So are you married?
I am. Yeah, I am.
What
29
was
years.
the impact of this on your relationship? Because this is a pretty dramatic life shift. So how did
Yeah.
it work?
Well, my wife's used to me doing a lot of crazy things over the years. So just like, "Oh, what are you doing now? You're disappearing." Okay, sure. Yeah. Like, what's going to happen? But it is a bit scary because, there's bills to pay and there's responsibilities around the house. But so my wife, of course, was tremendously supportive in that, and has been a reason why I've had success over the years for sure. But then there's also people in my circle, in my family, where sadly they are maybe toxic people around, and I often find when I talk to people and coach people, it's a lot of times it's the people closest to us that can be the most toxic or negative, because they have the most access to you. And it scares people when they see someone that really wants to go to that next level, someone's pushing themselves, because it reminds them that they're maybe playing their hands small. And so you have to make some really tough cuts or tough decisions on some people. You can't cut them out of your life, but you can limit how much access they get to you. And that was something I had to do as well.
Well, okay, I'm still kind of stuck on the whole pick five and only put five new numbers in your phone because there's a big part of me that's like, I'm running through the Rolodex in my head. That's how old I am. And uh,
Yeah, me too.
and or my, scrolling through my phone contacts is like, holy shit, that would be hard to figure out but really requires a kind of discipline and ruthless commitment to the kind of excellence and quality and integrity that you want to have.
Hmm.
So I admire it, but like, wow, that would be very, very difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Did you find that you had any kind of backlash or did people just not notice? What was the impact of that?
Yeah, the funny thing was I did it for like my phone. I did it for I killed all my social media for the year too. And the surprising, not so surprising thing was nobody really noticed. And
Mhm.
and I, not like I was this like introvert that nobody ever heard from. Like I was fairly loud and connected
Vocal. Yep.
and but nobody noticed.
Yep.
And that was really liberating and also kind of humbling at the same time. And I felt like, you know what, the people that really, if I miss somebody in that exercise, they'll find me. Like they'll be able to get to me, and maybe there'll be a better connection because it's not like just on a screen or something like that.
Yeah.
I was really looking for deeper, more meaningful connections with people. They weren't just because you get to our age, it's like I just want actual quality connections with people. I don't want surface level connections. I really want meaningful connections that matter. And that's the stage I'm at, is like, if it's all like, I don't want to talk about the weather. I want to talk about where are you doing? What's your dream? What lights you up? And what are you building? And what matters? And so many people on my list are just surface level connections that I had that I was okay to let go of.
Yeah, fascinating. Especially in a world where, especially if you're working online and so forth, you want a billion followers, you've got, 5,000 friends on Facebook that you don't know and so forth. So it's a fascinating, contrary path to walk, but it's also very fascinating and clarifying, like you said, both humbling and liberating,
Mhm.
because, yeah, we really think people think about us more than they do.
Yeah, right.
They
They
really don't. Um,
don't. Yeah.
so, so what are you building now? What is the future look like for you?
Yeah, I love speaking. It's something I've always done, or not always done, but I've had it sort of through the roles I've had in the past. I've had the
Yeah.
opportunity to present, and so really, I'm in this stage. I'm really looking to build my speaking business, my speaking platform, and sort of leveraging the lessons that I've learned to do that. So doing some keynoting, the book, of course. I've got another book in the back of my mind that I'd like to sort of roll out as well. So that's really my big focus right now, is sharing that message and trying to learn how to do that, because like we were talking a little bit before jumping on here, is like, man, I've got to get sharp on, I can talk about a lot of things, but how do I really get my message narrowed down so that it resonates? Because I can go, I need to sharpen that a little bit, but that's what I'm
Yeah.
working on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and we were talking about getting really clear on your why or your purpose, and then how does that relate to other people? What's in it for them?
Mhm.
What is the problem you solve for them, and how do you do that? And so, after all this introspection and the journey you've been on, what is your purpose in life?
Yeah, like to me, it's about really helping people who are unstuck or burnt out and just sort of feel like they've gotten to this place where they lack sort of purpose, or like really understand their what their value is helping people to discover that and
Mm.
be able to reinvent themselves. Because I honestly believe that um, this is at this stage of our lives is where you have the biggest opportunity to make an impact, because you've got the life history. But I think for me, it's like we're stuck. A lot of people get stuck and you don't know anything else to do. So that's really my purpose, is to help people unlock that, because I've been there, and I would lie here if I said I've got it all figured out, but I think I've unlocked a lot that's
Mhm.
taking me down this next chapter of sort of really living with purpose. And so that's kind of my pursuit right now.
Okay, well, so that sounds like that's how you're living into your purpose, and the expression of it at this point is to really support people in figuring out what's their next leap or
Mhm.
how to deepen their sense of contribution and making a difference now. and really how to get out of the I have a great life, how come I'm not happy rut, or just being burnt out and stuck, like you said. A
Mhm.
lot of people not clear on what's next. And I think right now, especially because so many boomers and Gen Xers are at a stage where we're supposed to, go to school, get a degree, go get a job, climb the ladder like you did, have, the family 2.5 kids, work hard, build your corporate success, and then retire. Unless, of course, you get fired first, and then disappear. But that's so not the case anymore. And so I think we're having really a global identity crisis because there's literally millions of people going, okay, who am I if I'm not the CEO or the VP? Or who am I now that I'm not a, accountant or a mom or whatever the role was? But that never was our purpose. Our
Mm,
What we do is never our purpose. It's why we do what we do. So
yeah.
I think there's a lot of people who really need that time and space to consider who
Yeah.
are they when they are not the role and why do they do what they do. So I think it's great advice to say, okay,
Mm,
take a conscious step back. Now it may not be for a year, y'all. It might just be that you do what you can do for however long you do it, but giving yourself the space to stop and say, what do I want?
mhm. It's
Not
so
what.
well said, Jeanette, because I think we've been fed this narrative, and it's just been like this. Is to your point. This is success. These are what you do, and then we get into it. Go, wait a minute. How come I don't feel good about this? Doesn't It's not lighting me up? And there's so many people. I think even younger, midlife, that are like, this can't be all, and we just keep chasing, and we just go deeper and deeper, and then you don't really give yourself that time to
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
reflect. And it's I hear a lot of people say like they don't care anymore, like they don't give like stuff. Is like, I just don't care. I don't give any care to that. There's probably an F word that goes with that, but it's like it's like it's not that you don't care. It's just the things you used to care about, don't really matter anymore. And so it's just like it's a really interesting challenge. I think, like to your point, so many people are going through.
Yeah. And I think it's a lot of it is shifting from a life of shoulds and obligation and expectation to a life of choice. And that's not an easy transition. Sounds like it should be, but it's not. First of all, you got to figure out what the hell you want. And what do you want? Like really, truly, what
Mm,
lights your soul up, like you said. And what is that purpose and what would be fulfilling and meaningful and what kind of legacy do you want to leave and all of those kind of questions.
yeah.
So and that is often challenging to do when we're caught up on the treadmill, and it helps to have someone like you, a coach like me, to be able to help us pull the hand back from the end of our nose because we can't see what's right there. And
Mhm.
so we need that perspective. And so your book advocates one way to approach that, or a bunch of ways to approach that in terms of just giving yourself the space and the time and the disconnection. And I think
Mhm.
disconnection, like you said earlier, I thought it was a really great line about you have to empty out the cup so that you can fill it with more or new or better.
Yeah.
So
And you land on a really important question that it's a simple question that most people can't answer easily, is what is it that you want? And if he's like, oh, I don't know, because I thought it was this. And now, like, to me, when I wrestled with that's a lot. I was like, well, what do you, I was like, I
yeah,
don't know what I want. Like, maybe I should think about that. Cause how do you get to where you're going if you don't know where it is you're going? It's like, you've got to really be clear on that. And I think that's a really, really difficult question that people haven't spent enough time on or even thought about, really.
yeah.
That changes everything. So thanks for flagging that one.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, and obviously that's what you did and dedicated your disconnection and reconnection to, is that answering that for you and helping others answer that for them. So how can they find out, how can they get your book? How can they find out more about you and connect with you, Ian?
Yeah, the best place, the kind of the hub of it all, is my website. It's ianamanofficial.com. There's links there to sort of my book. I'm on Barnes and Noble and Amazon. There's ways you can get a hold of me there, and that's a great place to start.
Okay, awesome. Is there an Ian Aman unofficial? I'm just curious.
There's ianaman.com, which is weird, and it's not me. So
Oh,
I'm like,
okay.
I need another thing behind my name. So I thought official sounds official. So
Official?
let's
Okay.
go
All
official.
right. Well, so a couple quick questions before we wrap up here. And by the way, folks, if this conversation sparked something in you, I'd appreciate it if you left a review and or shared this episode with other people that may be going through the inquiry or the question around what's next for me. So the whole purpose of this podcast is for those of us who are 55 plus and hashtag not done by a long shot to be given inspiration and ideas and thoughts for how to approach what's next. And so that's why I bring you fascinating people like Ian to say, okay, well, here's an option, here's an angle, here's a way to think about it, here's what you could do next. So that please pass this on. Like us in social, give us lots of love. That helps everybody else be able to access this as well. So appreciate you doing that. All right, Ian, let's just go through a couple quick things before we wrap up here. What's something about reinvention that surprised you or that you never knew?
It's really scary.
Mm,
It's really scary. You think it's easy, but it's scary to go into those places and really take a look at yourself.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because it's like that scene in Star Wars where Luke has to go into the cave and, see himself, and he's terrified to do that. Um, what did you have to unlearn after 50?
Yeah, so much, so much because you have to like you basically feel like you're starting over because you don't have a playbook being given to you. So like when you're used to sort of like following someone else's script, following a bit of the routine of the job, and like I had to basically unlearn a lot of how things got done and be okay with not having the clarity and the answers and being comfortable in that sort of no man's land.
Yeah. Well, one of the things about that's so scary about this reinvention is we have to move into conscious incompetence. And we
Mhm.
spent a whole life getting consciously competent about whatever, and unconsciously competent about whatever it is, and having the answers. So to consciously move into a state of not having the answers, of not knowing, takes a lot of courage, a lot of ovaries or cojones. And I actually think it's not so much starting over because we have a foundation of core competence, but it feels like that tremulous place where we don't know, and we don't know what we don't know, and that can be really scary. So, what's one belief that held you back or kept you stuck the longest?
Yeah, I think a belief for me has always been um, that everything has to be perfect. Like,
Mhm.
like I think a lot of times like to me, at least for myself is like, I often find myself in the past getting stuck because I won't move unless I've got all the pieces together. I've got the whole plan, the whole strategy built, and then I'll execute it. Um,
Mm,
and I think what I've learned has been just start, just get
mm,
going, just take one step and then go to the next one, and then don't overthink it. And that's something I fight with even still today is this perfectionism of
mhm.
making sure like I think I don't know if it's a Gen X thing or what, but I just have to make sure I got everything safely figured out before I jump. And it's like
Yeah,
I got to stop that because you just get stuck more when you have
yeah.
to be perfect.
Well, and it's fascinating to me that you do the ultra marathons because you can't possibly know how all 200 miles of that's going to go or 100
Mm.
miles and what even the next step might bring. And so it's a great discipline to support you in letting go of that because you can prepare as much as you want. You can train hard like you do, but you have no idea what's going to be at mile 50. So
Yeah.
I think that's a great kind of oxymoronic way to deal with that, if that's actually the right word.
I
Okay,
mean, it's
so
no man's land where you learn the most.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so what would you say to someone who thinks it's too late to get going?
Oh my gosh. This is the prime.
Yeah.
Like this is your prime because you've got clarity, you've got a network that you've built over the years, you've got balance, you've got stability most likely, and you can recognize patterns because you've seen sort of how toxic relationships and toxic things or whatever in your past, like you can see you've been through so much, you've got so much wisdom to give. We were joking earlier, is like nothing against a 25-year-old life coach, but how can you teach people something if you've never been through it? So I think I wish I could have gone back to the 25-year-old version of me with all of the life experience I have now. And I think the world is desperate for people in this sort of generation to come forward. So it's not too late by a long shot.
Beautiful. On that perfect note, I would say to you, my friends, it's time. It's time for you to be the difference that only you can be. Because if not now, when? Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here, Ian. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Thank you for listening. I'd love it if you left a comment and subscribed. And I encourage you to apply one aha from this interview right away so you can turn your wisdom into wealth and your contribution into positive change. Bye for now.